This is how to remove the shackle and leaf spring pins on a 1950 Ford F1. A lot of other trucks have this same style, but this is by far the easiest way I've found. This truck has sat since 1972. They were not easy to get off. We spent about 2 to 3 hours banging on the back of them, trying to press them out with a hammer. Before I found this tip online, if you make this tool, which is a 1/2 inch by 13 bolt, about 6 inches long, if you take it, you grind off the end of it, the threads, you get a die for a 1/8-27 NPT National Pipe thread. It will actually screw in to the end of the pin where the grease fitting goes. And I didn't cut these threads perfectly, so it goes in a little bit wonky, but not too bad. It goes in plenty deep, and then you can actually use a socket larger than the pin itself and pull it out with a nut and washer and just tighten the nut, and as the nut tightens it will actually pull the pin out into this cup. I'll show you how to do that on this last pin. I've done all of the other 5. Also, side note, if you have a lot of play in this joint here, which is the topmost one, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and order some of these shackles. As you can tell, this is no longer round right here, this top bolt. It's actually oblong, and what has happened is it's worn through the brass bushing on the bottom side and into a part. There's no fixing that. So I found a set. They're about 50 bucks a piece. I ordered them, they got here in about a week. But there's really no good way to do that without replacing that shackle. Since it's already worn into the part, there's no reason to put a bushing in it. It's not gonna last very long at all. So here goes. This one is probably the hardest to get to, just because of where it is. These sections were already cut out when I started this. So I guess that may be a factory cut out there. It's in exactly the right spot. But this truck was bought by my grandfather from a junkyard in 1956. So a lot of it's not original. In fact, most of it's not original. That's tight. Now before you go any further, there's a locking pin that's going to keep you from being able to pull this out. And if you decide not to take the locking pin out, you'll probably just strip off the threads that you so carefully made. It's actually under here is where, well, this is the back side of the pin. 9/16 nut is on the other side. So I'll just clean it up a little bit. Get this nut off, just hit it with a hammer, knock it through, and we'll take something smaller than this hole, knock the pin completely through, because it's going to have some trouble. Now we got the locking pin out, we can go ahead and loosen it here, but just so you can see, these things have ridges, kind of weird. There's a slot taken out on this side, and then another on the opposite side. And that makes this high spot, this high flat spot in the middle. That actually goes in a ridge on the pin itself, which I'll show you when I pull it out. But for now, I'll set that to the side and we'll go ahead and pull this pin out. So as you push this nut down, it will actually pull the pin out of the leaf springs. This is not fighting me at all, whereas the other 5, I actually one of them I couldn't get, but luckily it was in the bottom of the shackle, which I'm replacing, so I just got the locking pin out and left the actual shackle. Right, now the pin is part of the way out. As you can see, they are very worn on the underside usually, where all the weight is pressing. And there will be an identical spot on the opposite end of this pin, which will probably make it hard to come out. I would recommend rotating the pin at this point, pretty much just by using your socket to where that is on top. It should come out, at least the first half should come out easier. The second half you may want to flip it back over so that wear spot is on the bottom. And not the best way to do this, but you can just hit your hammer on your wrench here if you hold it just right to pull it the rest of the way out, because it should be pretty loose at this point. Now that it's out, you can kind of look at it. Almost guarantee you they'll need to be replaced, which I didn't think about before I started this. So it's been sitting like this for about a week. I've got new pins and new shackles now. Gold stuff appears to be grease. I don't know if it's original or not, but it's in all the joints I've checked so far, and it's still gold. So this truck hasn't been serviced since '72 at best, and it still looks like there's grease. But anyways, so that should be loose at this point. Pin is out, and you should be ready to put your new parts back in. So I hammered the shackle up and into place. This pin's not quite into it yet. You want to get those as lined up as you can. I got these pins from LMC. They came in Dennis Carpenter packaging, which I thought was very expensive. It has been when I've ordered other stuff from them. So I was surprised to see that LMC sent Dennis Carpenter stuff, but I'm not going to argue. It was a good price. They were like $6 a piece. 6 times 6 of these pins. It was, I think, after shipping and tax and everything, it was like $42, maybe $50, $55 at most after shipping and tax. So it was worth it to not have to reuse something that really didn't look good. That's the original pin. As you can see, you can barely tell. There's a little ridge right here where that locking pin goes. You're supposed to be able to see it more than that, but there's so much wear on it you can't really tell. This is what it's supposed to look like. Same orientation if it'll quit rolling away from me. So I would recommend getting new ones. Putting these in, you want this ridge. If you look close, you see the ridge is on the bottom side of the hole. This locking pin is also on the bottom side of the hole, on the bottom side of the hole in this one, and it's on the bottom side of the hole in this one. So you really want this ridge facing down. If you have trouble making them line up, the easiest thing to do that I've found is actually thread the alamite or the grease fitting, whatever you want to call it, into the end and spin the pin one way or the other. Usually it'll only really let you tighten it, so you may have to go around 180 degrees, 360 degrees, whatever it may be, and see if it's lined up in this hole. And once it's lined up, you should be able to, with a little bit of persuasion, get this back in place. I'm going to be reusing, because I already reused them on the other side and didn't have any trouble. So definitely recommend getting new pins, but locking pins aren't really that important as long as they're held on each end, so not a big deal.